Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from YellowCat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet, and let's get started. Do you have any funny resigning day stories, Reddit? I had a job as a system administrator at the time. I was one of 25 administrators responsible for 800 servers. Yes, really. I worked alone in the main data center during my shift. Everyone else worked 8 to 5 hours in the main office. They would bring me snacks of servers to rack and install, but I was the only one putting out fires at the same time. To make it all worse, I would bring my own netbook to the data center. I became quite frustrated, especially after my manager criticized me for being irresponsible in an instant message aired to the entire business. However, I couldn't afford to quit, so I looked for another position. Within 2 minutes of receiving the job offer, I submitted my 2 weeks' notice and informed a select group of close friends that I was leaving. Within minutes, concerned members of the tech support team began to inquire about my resignation from the administration staff. My close coworkers didn't appear to understand that I was dissatisfied. One even said I was the victim of a headhunter's poaching. I also knew from reliable sources that the company was planning a significant merger and that I should leave before things started to get worse. On the morning of my last day, they make the buyout and bonus announcement for all employees. I entered, handed in my badge, collected my bonus check, and left. The company has switched from the goal of let's build a reliable customer base to let's get as much money as we can from our customer base before they leave, according to contacts within the organization. Other sibling companies are also actively recruiting staff. Best decision of my life. I was employed by a firm that performed contract work for a public hospital. I was the single Windows shop's Unix system administrator. I initially had roughly 2 months of very difficult labor, and the following 4 years were spent on 20-minute shifts. Maybe a new printer, maybe a password reset, but basically watching stupid movies and reading stupid books. When Windows users acquired the newest virus or exploit, they were made fun of. I had some actual work at last. I had around 4 hours left to finish the upgrade from one rare, outdated variant that supported Java to another rare, slightly upgraded but outdated variant. When I was paged, everything was done except for running the script to establish the user accounts and import their passwords. I'm a command line guy, and it was only there for non-Unix techs when they needed a holiday. You must attend an urgent meeting on the South Campus. We have to inform you. You realize the server's down while I'm performing a critical server upgrade? Yes, but this is an urgent situation. The writing on the wall was visible to me. I prepared my briefcase with my office supplies and headed to what I thought would be a mass layoff. As expected, during my exit interview, I was giggling. I took roughly 3 hours to do the upgrading. I informed him that if they had intended to deliberately choose the worst time to fire me, they had succeeded. The manager said he would fill my position when I inquired about who would replace me. He couldn't do it, I knew it. I departed after writing my home phone and $2,000 an hour to complete upgrade, 3-hour estimate on the back of a business card. They called, but were unable to provide me that. It was against the rules. They made an $80 an hour offer. I informed them that they ought to have chosen a different time of day to fire me. Throughout the following month, while they worked to resolve the issue, users continued to conduct business using paper forms. To convince the vendor to handle the upgrade, they paid $100,000 to replace the server with a brand new unit from the vendor. When they first informed me of the upgrade, I proposed doing just that. When I was a student in high school, I had a job at Subway. I was never informed by anyone about what was taking place. After reading the schedule for 1 week, I realized that I would be required to work 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. I worked the first 2 days and nothing out of the ordinary occurred. A bulldozer had just finished demolishing the entire strip mall where I worked when I arrived at work on Friday wearing a shirt from the place where I worked, Subway. When I turned around, I see that someone's putting up a sign that states that a Lowe's is going to be built there. The demolition of the store was never brought up in any of my conversations with any of the employees. Never came across any of those individuals ever again in my life. It was a fairly humorous day when I left my company. One chat service is primarily used by the entire firm to communicate. Leaving aside the reason for my resignation, the amusing thing was that even though I returned home after quitting and was still logged into my chat, none of the company groups had deleted me. I sat there in awe for hours as they all began to fret about the potential harm I might do. Yay for being a coder! And how they ought to lock me out, erase my accounts, etc. Pretty basic things, yet they were unable to complete any of it. So I left around noon, and around 6 to 7 p.m., my former manager, a very nice man, kindly informed them that I had been in the chat the entire time, and that they had spent a long time telling me everything I could do to ruin projects, and outlining the safeguards to prevent me from doing so. Not a fantastic idea, really. Just as I started S like this, insert company here, I was kicked out. This is S. I asked around my pals at the workplace, and they said it allegedly sparked a flurry of emails alerting everyone in the organization about me, which really simply led to a lot of uncertainty and fright because few people knew who I was. Edit. Someone questioned my decision to leave. Here it is because it's somewhat lengthy, and I feel somewhat pleased with it. In essence, I was hired to build an apartment that they didn't yet have because they needed someone with experience to do it. Unfortunately, this meant that other people had to begin performing actual work, which led to my eventual ouster and placement on another team because it was difficult to defend my termination. Compared to my peers, I was paid 30% less on this team despite having the most experience in the work we were doing. At one point, I was the only person who could complete numerous crucial jobs, and the only other guy who might have been able to do so was on vacation, so I ended up working more than all of them combined. In light of this, it was absurd to make me work 90-hour weeks to cover for a guy and perform a task for which they get paid significantly more, so I told my supervisor I was going to apply for a promotion. I was also assured that I would start working full-time in 3 months. Month 9 was at hand. So I called my major boss into a meeting and basically said, give me what I was told I was going to get or I quit. There was a lot of, you were never X, you were never Y, backtracking. There was a lot of the typical managerial BS. I calmly asserted my position and stated, I don't care, this is how it'll be. The only one who can complete your critical task is me. He said, I don't respond to ultimatums. I shook his hand and informed him that I was leaving. Before I returned to my workstation, they had already taken my laptop, which was amazing considering how far away our meeting was. I ate my lunch, took my things, and was taken out by guards who had grown close to me as a result of my propensity for staying up late. Then, there I was. It became amusing at this point. As a sort of farewell, I went to enjoy a drink with a friend. The manager of the team, whose super important assignment I abandoned, waltzed into the bar as I was recounting to him what had occurred earlier that day. I thought he was going to send me to the other world. Nope. He essentially stated, let's have shots. Wish I had the balls to leave this place. Very chilly at night. Redditors who have lived in a homeowners association, share the stupidest, most petty, or most ridiculous trick that your HOA has played on you. Before I shouted F this ass, I dealt with an HOA just once when they attempted to send a fine to me and my then girlfriend. Our automobile was 1/8 inch over the driveway and into the sidewalk, which resulted in the $1,000 charge. The problem is that, at most, an effing smart car could fit in the driveways, and those weren't even invented yet. They claimed to have photographic proof, but we disputed it and demanded evidence. They were unable to do so, and when my girlfriend's lawyer sister entered the conversation, there was a clear misunderstanding and the letter had not been intended to be sent. Why was it filled out and sent then, men, if you never intended to send it? Later, they attempted to intimidate my neighbor, an FBI agent, but that attempt ended horribly for them, as you can anticipate. Story about the FBI agent, please? I don't know the whole story, and it's been almost 20 years, but what I do remember is that the homeowners association told him that he couldn't park his work vehicle on the property, either because it made the neighbors feel uncomfortable. Don't know the whole story, and it's been almost 20 years. In the same boat, there is no other place to park. He was in no way breaking any laws or regulations in any way. They disliked him simply due to the fact that he was black and his family was the only black family in the subdivision. The white police officer down the block parked his cruiser without making any noise about it. But what about the black man who was wearing government tags? They did not understand what was being said. Therefore, they attempted once to have his vehicle towed for abandonment reasons. My only piece of information is that it stopped happening suddenly one day not long after that. At that point, they refused to even accept his existence as a human being. I can only speculate that they used the FAFO method. There were far too many elderly busybodies there. It is interesting to note that if you were to visit that neighborhood at the present day, it appears to have the potential to serve as the setting for a post-apocalyptic movie. I like to think that he paid them a visit and said something diehard like authorization. How about the United States effing government? Honestly, he was the coolest effing neighbor ever. You'd think he'd be a hard A, but he was legit one of the most chill dudes ever. Ended up bonding over gaming. Saw he was playing Xbox one day walking past his house, and the next time I saw him, I cracked a joke on getting the drop on the guy behind the AC in the game, and that was it. We had a water heater break when I was a child, flooding our basement. To get rid of the damaged goods, we leased a dumpster. A member of the HOA board called the dumpster company and had it taken away. My mother was indignant that the dumpster business had listened to someone who was plainly not a resident of the house and who definitely did not have our last name. They repositioned the dumpster and assessed a removal fee to the HOA. The HOA board member contacted and threatened my dad because he was the one who needed the service but had to pay the business. When my father said that he would run for the board solely to overthrow him, he ultimately abandoned it. The same person also regularly throws temper tantrums about prices or expired coupons in our neighborhood grocery store, cuts down other people's bushes without permission, leaves the sticks and debris on the sidewalk, reports kids for leaving their bikes outside, reports any car that hasn't moved in a few days, including my mom's car when she was hospitalized for a concussion and couldn't drive it, and lets his untrained dogs growl at people unleashed. He's almost 90 now, and the whole neighborhood is waiting for him to go to a nursing home. Edit, it finally happened! He left our neighborhood! Our real estate agent conveniently failed to inform us about one of those for-profit HOAs. In fact, she lied about it, and it's buried in the fine language of the second version of the contract. It is nevertheless annoying despite the fact that the responsibility lies with us for not carefully reading it. The president of the Homeowners Association was seen on camera climbing and peeking over 6-foot fences in order to determine which type of grill each member possesses in order to levy fines on those who owned gas grills. She was injured when one of the fences, which is in such terrible condition that it caused one of the fences to fall over on her and hurt her, is owned by the HOA, and it is their job to maintain the fences. Yet, people have been asking the HOA to fix the fences for over 5 years with no answer. We were able to figure out what she was up to because 1 week prior, she sent out a broad email informing those who owned gas grills that they would be penalized if they kept their grills. A security camera owned by the homeowners also captured the incident. She was caught on camera as she climbed up 2 gates and looked around before scaling the fence that collapsed. She made an effort to avoid the Homeowners Association having to pay for the damage by pointing the finger of responsibility towards the homeowners for demolishing the fence on purpose. She never revealed the reason why she was injured and instead claimed that it was the result of an accident. The homeowner did the smart thing and just mentioned that the HOA was legally responsible for the fence and that it wasn't even on their property. They brought up the fact that it was common knowledge that they were not in good condition. The president enlisted the assistance of corporate attorneys who penned letters warning the debtors that they would take steps to confiscate their property if they did not pay, pointing out that this was permitted under the charter and that the owner had no recourse in the matter. An initial court hearing was scheduled after several rounds of letters were exchanged, during which the homeowner asked for evidence that it was their fault, but instead received more threatening letters in response. The owner appeared alongside a legal representative. The attorneys representing the company traveled all the way from Texas to be here. The Homeowners Association president arrived at the meeting beaming from ear to ear. They made an effort to schedule a speedy trial, but when the homeowner's attorney produced the video, it was watched by the judge as well as all of the attorneys. A new president has been elected to our HOA. I've heard that the homeowner was awarded a large sum of money to settle the legal dispute and cover the costs associated with it. Their section of the fence is brand new, but the rest of us still have fences that are sagging at an angle of approximately 60 degrees. The facility is home to a large number of children, many of whom are known to scale the fences. Just keeping our 5 years worth of ignored emails to the previous and current president of the HOA so that we can provide them to the parent of the child who was wounded. I've heard that the former president of the HOA tried to sue the company for her injuries, but since she didn't disclose it when it happened, and numerous people were present when she ascribed it to some other reason, the case didn't go anywhere and she ended up having to settle out of court. We're very, very glad to see you all in the comments again. Many, many thanks for your support.